Hey everybody, welcome to another FireTEK video. Now for those of you who are not familiar with FireTEK, FireTEK is a firework firing system. It's used by professional display companies across the UK and indeed around the world. And I've done a whole series of videos covering all the different system components. You'll find a link to that in the corner of the screen now. But in this video, I want to cover some new features. Now, one of the things I like about FireTEK is they constantly improve the firmware. The firmware is basically the software that runs inside these modules and the controller, and it gives it new features. And they listen to user feedback and they implement new things all the time. Recently, there's been some new features which are really exciting. And so in this series of short videos, I want to delve into some of the newer features that you can find in FireTEK. So the one I want to cover in this video are these little things. These are tiny little remote controls. Let's show you on the close-up camera so you can see. Little 4-button remote controls. They have 4 buttons on: BWD backwards, FWD forwards, 1 and 2. They operate on 433 megahertz. And you can use them for a number of things. But one of the things that's been recently improved, the functionality has actually been there for a while, but in recent times it's been improved and now it's actually usable, is crew control. What's crew control? Okay, so imagine a big firework display. You've got the person firing the show from the remote control several hundred meters away. You've got various different firing sites. You might have a big shell site. The shell site might be behind a row of trees. It might be several hundred meters away. So the person firing the show might not be actually able to see the shell site. So what happens if there's a problem? Well, normally in that situation, you would have spotters, people with a radio by the shell site, and if there's any issues with the shells, they will radio through to the person operating the show saying stop, stop, stop. The person can then stop the show. Obviously, that takes a little bit of time between making that radio call and the show stopping. Wouldn't it be great if there was another way? Well, there is. Using these little remote controls, you can have your spotters with one of these and they can temporarily disable modules from firing mid-show, which is great. I love it. Let's say a shell rack fell over. It shouldn't do, but a spotter would see that. They'd be able to press a button. Instantly, the module or modules that are controlling the fireworks in those racks will be disabled from the rest of the show. The rest of the show can carry on firing, but everything connected to that module or those modules will be disabled. Really useful feature. Similarly, you can also re-enable them as well from this remote. So if, for example, let's say you have a spotter on a site and a member of the public gets too close, or a steward more likely gets too close, you can override that module, prevent that particular module from firing. Once that person's moved out of the way, you can then resume that module again to fire. So the first thing we need to do with these little remotes is you have to pair it, or rather should I say learn it, to a module. How do we do that? Okay, here's a FireTEK module. If you're not familiar with these, there's a link about them in the corner of the screen now. So to pair it, what we do is we turn the module on, and then we hold down the FWD or the forward button. So we'll hold that down and you'll see the screen changes to hold FF, press remote. FF means FWD. Why it doesn't say FWD, I don't know, but that's what FF means. And then I basically need to press a button on this remote control. Doesn't matter which button I press, let's just press this one. And then you'll see the screen changes to release FF, remote detected. So it's detected this remote control now, so I can let go of forward. The screen then changes to learn pause, BTN, which stands for button. So this now allows me to teach it which button I want to use to pause this module. So I can press any of these 4 buttons on this little remote. I'm going to set it to backwards. So if I press backwards, it's going to pause this module. So I press BWD, and you'll see there it indicates that I've pressed the blue button. So I then press next, and then it wants me to learn the resume button. So for resume, I'm going to select forward, FWD. I press that. You'll see the buttons change to green. And then we hold FF for save. So we'll save this. Crew saved. So this remote is now learned on this module, and this will survive a power recycle. If I turn this module off and on again, it will remember that this remote is linked paired to it. To test this, when I press a button on this remote, you'll get a little indicator in the upper left corner on here. So if I press the blue button, or the green button rather, you'll see it flashes green. If I press the blue button, or the backwards button, it flashes B. If I press the 1 or the 2, it flashes X, because those two buttons are not programmed yet. Okay, so we'll come out of that. The good thing about this as well is you can pair this to multiple modules. So it's not just one remote per module. I could learn this on another module, 2, 3, 4, as many modules as I want. When I press the backwards button that I've learned, it will pause the firing of all those modules. Really, really useful. I do actually have a couple of these buttons to sort of play around with and try out. The good thing is they're not universal. Each one is unique. So for example, this is the one I've just programmed. So if I press a button on this, you'll see on the screen, and there we go, it's flashing G to show I've pressed the green button. On this remote, however, if I press a button on here, I just get an X in the corner, which means that, yeah, it's recognizing this remote, but nothing is programmed. The only two buttons that are programmed are the ones on this other remote, the blue and the green buttons. Okay, so now that we've learned that remote, how does that work in practice? How does it all work? So what we're going to do is we're going to connect a couple of rails to this module and run a little test script. So we'll turn on the controller as well. Let's turn on the controller. Great, so I've got a little test script in here. It just sequentially goes through all the queues at a 1 second interval. At the moment it's showing there's errors because I don't have any igniters or indeed rails connected. So I'm not going to fire igniters, but I'm going to connect some rails and we'll be able to see the little indicator lights on the rails. So let's connect one to rail 1. So there's one rail. We can see as well, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, the lights are flashing across the top to show that this is powered up. And we'll connect another rail to the second rail output on the module. The modules can have 4 rail outputs. Each rail can do 16 channels. These modules are 64 channels of fire control. So I'll put this one in here. Right, let's get this positioned so we can see the screen again. Okay, so I've got rail 1 here, rail 2 here. Let's move some of these out of the way. It's still showing errors because I've not got any igniters connected, and that's fine for this testing. So when I play this script, so I need to arm the system, I'm going to put it into arm mode, and it'll beep at me. The controller beeps, the module beeps, it means it's ready to fire. When I press play or go on the controller, this will now sequentially fire these channels, 1 through 16 on rail 1 and then 1 through 16 on rail 2. Let me show you what that sounds like. You can see as well the little red lights flashing upwards there, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and then onto this rail, 17, 18, and so on, at 1 second intervals. And every queue's firing. Let's stop that. Let's come out of arm mode. Let's put it back into arm mode. This time I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to hold my pause button on the remote control part way through this sequence. What will happen is this module will stop beeping, the screen will start flashing rapidly, indicating there's a crew override, but the script will keep running until I press the forward button, and then it will just carry on with the show. So let's see how that looks like. Let's go to play. Okay, so you can see the counting up. I'm now going to press the BWB button, and you'll see the lights have stopped. This is still beeping, this has stopped beeping. This is now flashing crew pause rapidly. I can take my finger off here, so this is paused, this is locked out from firing. When I press forward again, you'll see it carries on, but it missed out all those cues in between. So it doesn't just resume from where it was, it just basically mutes that module for the duration that it's locked out, and then you can resume it and it will then go back into the show and pick up from wherever it needs to. So really exciting, really useful feature. This is the FireTEK 4-button remote control that you can use for crew control. I really like this. Range-wise, I'm not entirely sure what the range of it is. 433 megahertz though, so you're probably looking about 100 meter range outdoors. I probably might do a test on it at some point, but 100 meters is going to be adequate for your crew spotters to be able to have one of these, to be able to disable one or more modules if there's an issue. A couple of things that I think could be improved with this. You see, I had to learn this remote to the modules. That's great. I get why that needs to be done for security, but then you actually have to assign the buttons. I assigned the backwards button to pause and the forwards button to resume on that module. I could set that up on another module to be exactly the opposite of that. So it could get a little bit confusing. You know, at the end of the day, if we're using this as a crew control safety device, we want this to be consistent. Your crew need to know that if they press the backwards button, it's going to pause. The fact that we can reconfigure that and have a different button for pause and a different button for resume could add a little bit of confusion. So I would rather that the buttons were fixed in terms of pause and resume for crew control. But there we go. The other thing that could be improved is that you might have noticed when I was overriding this screen on the module was flashing rapidly saying crew override. There was no indication on the controller screen at all that a module was being overridden. So if I was firing this show from the remote and one of my spotters on the team temporarily disabled a module, I would have no indication of that at all. I would think something's wrong, something's not firing, what's going wrong? So it'd be useful if there is a crew override in effect that gets displayed on this controller screen. But other than that, I think this is a great system, a great kind of dead man switch, crew control, really useful feature. This functionality has been around with the FireTEK system for a while. It's been pretty temperamental. I've been trying to play around with it since last year, in fact, and it was very intermittent. They've now fixed those issues, which is great, which is why I'm now very happy to do a video on it. You will need firmware of at least 0.90E to be precise on your modules for this to work. But I think this is an inexpensive way to add that additional layer of safety into your shows to allow your crew spotters to be able to temporarily mute modules. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this FireTEK video, why not check out some more of my FireTEK videos?